My name is Jessica Osterday, and I'm here with Camila Peace. And we are here today on the Secure, Sovereign, and Single Facebook group. And we're talking about insecurities today. And we're talking about how to use insecurities to build stronger relationships with ourselves and others. And what I love about this topic is that normally we don't think of insecurities as adding positive things to a relationship, to ourselves or to others. We usually look at them as roadblocks, as impediments for love, as impediments for connection. And what I like about this is that actually we all have insecurities, and the very nature of them makes them very strong for each of us until we really face into them, learn the lessons that they have for us to learn, and use them in order to, as we're talking about today, build stronger relationships. So I'd love to turn it over to Camila. Just would love an introduction and to know a little bit more about you so we can dive into this juicy topic.
Let's do it. Hey, everyone. Good morning. I am Camila Peace on Facebook. My real last name is Love, Camila Love. I'm a transformational love coach with Love Coach Academy. I also do mediation work, conflict resolution work in the families and the homes, helping relationships go through the challenges and turmoils that we inevitably go through. And I assist people in finding resolution through those turmoils. I also have a Sufi healing background, and I bring the depth of that spiritual work into the coaching work that I do as well. So you can learn more about me at Transform Into Love. I specifically love helping folks that are in poly and ethical non-monogamous relationships, as I'm myself part of that community, and often find that folks in poly relationships navigate some different issues, and that it can be really helpful to have support from someone who's also navigating those issues in their own life.
Yes.
Yeah. So
Awesome.
Jessica, tell us a little bit about you and the work you do as well before we dive in.
Perfect. Well, one thing that I actually didn't know about you is that you were involved in the Sufi world. And I know very little about that, but I always just think of the whirling dervishes.
Yes.
And they're I've been to Turkey before, and when you see, it's so beautiful. It's just the image and like the expression of love through movement. The embodiment of God. I don't know. I mean, that's what I imagine.
Totally.
Yeah.
It is. The Sufi path is all about the heart, all about the embodiment of God. The whirling dervishes, they have one hand up to the heavens and one hand, I'm trying to be in the camera, like this, one hand up to the heavens, one hand down to the earth. And the idea is that literally part of our role is to stay connected to spirit and connected to the worldly world that's around us. So the goal is not to go be ascetic in a cave and not interface with humans, nor to be completely of the world without having connection to spirit. The goal is to have both of those poles open and aligned and creating communication both ways.
Oh, I love that. I love that. I do Kundalini Yoga, which is actually similar in the sense of it's called a householder's yoga. So again, like, you're not supposed to be out in a cave. You're allowed to be in the world eating garlic and onions and non-celibate.
But only if you're eating garlic and onions are you allowed to be in the world.
No, it's you got to get the fire up. It's important. So. All right. Well, my name is Jessica Osterday. I'm a life and empowerment coach. I also do something called brain spotting. I primarily work with individuals because brain spotting works really, really, really well with individuals. And what it does is it helps to transform at a very deep level our negative belief systems, our self-limiting belief systems. And so, like, those things that I get a lot of people who have been struggling with things for a really long time. They've worked with a lot of different therapists, they've worked with a lot of different people, and there's like this one thing or these two things that are really keeping them from being able to be present in difficult moments, and being able to live happier lives where they actually feel like they're being themselves in life on a day-to-day and not getting deterred. So this brain spotting and the type of life coaching that I do is really helpful for those kind of cornerstone pieces that are still keeping us stuck. And I'm really, really passionate about it. I love working with individuals. I love meeting people in and being an ally and a compassionate ally for them in their deep places that are hard to face. And we all have them. It can be, really big stuff like this giant monster, or it can be like these small belief systems that really just sort of like wear away our sense of being, our presence, our availability to the world, like water over time. And those are just as detrimental. So yeah, I love being compassionate. I love meeting. We're here with through and with the Love Coach Academy. We were both love coaches through the Love Coach Academy. And yeah, I think it's our moment, right? We're going in now. This is
We're
time.
going in, but I got to say one thing before we dive in. I got to just tell our listeners, get a brain spotting session with Jessica. Okay, she does them on Zoom. I did one with her, and it literally unpacked a whole aspect that I was working through with developmental trauma and brought me kind of magically. It's sort of this magic sauce, and it brings you from point A to point B without really understanding how you got there, but it works. And all of a sudden, you're in this new reality with different ways of approaching experiences in life. It's a really cool technology. So I highly recommend folks jump on a session with Jessica to get that brain spotting.
Thank you so much for saying that, because I really feel like it's magical. Like, I understand the science behind it, but I feel like you come out from the sessions and you're like, what?
What?
But I can say that because I do it. But I thank you for saying that also, because I feel like, yeah, it's just kind of like, neat. I'm in a different place now.
Pretty amazing.
Awesome. Okay, so today we are talking about insecurities and how to use them to create stronger relationships with ourselves and others. So do you want to take this away? Because I loved how you were talking about it earlier.
Sure. So as I was sitting preparing for this, I thought, what's really specifically unique about how we can use our insecurities in a transformational way to create connection? And I should preface it by saying we're talking about connection on really 3 levels. We're talking about connection with ourselves in our own journey of self-love and self-connection. We're talking about connection with others. And that can just be sort of generically others. It can be family members. It can be friends. It can be lovers and partners. It could even be bosses and work relationships. So how we can work with our insecurities to create connection to others. And then the third, for some of us, for me, this is really important. For you, it may have a differing level of importance. But for us, there's a third level of connection to spirit, connection to source, connection to your sense of higher power or soul. So we'll be referencing all 3 of those layers of connection today. And as I was thinking about this, what is it about our insecurities that create the vehicle for transformation, for greater connection? And one of the biggest aspects is vulnerability. We necessarily must be vulnerable if we're working with our insecurities, because almost by definition, our insecurities bring us a sense of shame, right? When we identify something that makes us insecure, we want to disconnect. We don't naturally want to connect in our place of insecurity. We want to protect and defend and be righteous and make up reasons for why these things are or aren't how they are. And ultimately, all of that positioning and justifying and defending most of the time leads to less connection, not greater connection. So Jessica and I are going to unpack this and work with you on how we can utilize our insecurities as vehicles for greater connection. And the starting point is vulnerability, right? So some of you may have heard Brené Brown talk on shame. It's one of her big topics, and you can listen to her TED Talk. It's phenomenal. I totally recommend it if you haven't heard it. And the idea with shame is that we want to hide our shame. And the way to heal our shame is through sharing it, literally through communicating actively about what we feel shame around. So this idea of insecurities and vulnerability is really the same. It's like if you identify with an insecurity for a moment, think of something you currently are insecure about. And this ranges from a looks thing or a mental thing or an emotional processing thing or a family of origin thing. I mean, we can be insecure about anything, right? So if you feel an insecurity for a moment, see if you feel that shame aspect where you'd rather not share it than share it, right? So we're saying, yeah, we understand there's a tendency to not want to be seen in our insecurities, and it takes courage to choose to be seen in an insecurity, just like it takes intentionality and courage to share something we're ashamed of. And just like Brene Brown says, it's through the sharing of the shame that we heal it. We're saying it's through intentionally moving toward connection with others or with self or with spirit while we're in that moment of insecurity that is likely to lead us to greater connection, which is to say, healing that place of insecurity where we don't want to be seen or loved. So we'll be bringing this out and giving examples of how we use intentionally connecting with our vulnerability to be in a place where we're bravely communicating our insecurity. And then from that place, we're allowing ourselves to be loved, to be connected with in our insecurity, which transforms it from a place of shame and hiding and insecurity to a place of strength and source of connection and intimacy.
Love it. Yeah. I'd love to jump in with just a couple of points because I think that, well, there's two thoughts that come to mind. One is I love to talk about courage because we have all of these movies where there are all of these heroes and Wonder Woman like coming in and she's so brave because she's like magically strong and can't be hurt. So that's not actually bravery. Like bravery does not feel good usually. Like bravery is scary. Vulnerability and the actual physical sensation of being vulnerable just by nature feels uncomfortable. So when we choose to be brave and share, even though it's uncomfortable, that's where bravery lives. It's not some magical place where we get brave fairy dust on us and all of a sudden it doesn't feel uncomfortable. It actually becomes less uncomfortable because more comfortable the more we exercise that muscle and the more we choose to share ourselves with people who are trustworthy. And that's a key point. And Brene Brown talks a lot about that too. If we share our important pieces with people who are trustworthy because they're sacred. Our parts of ourselves that hurt can be sacred to us and they can be sacred to others. And if we look at them as that gift, albeit one we're working with, and we use it as that gift, it changes things. It changes things a little bit. So the other part that I wanted to talk about is because this is a really big piece of what I do with my clients, even though it doesn't seem like when I went into Brain Spotting Life Coaching, I didn't think, oh, this is like one of the primary things that I'm going to do as a space holder and as a healer. No, okay, so relationship to self, vulnerability with self. What? Like I'm with myself all day long. Why would I need to be vulnerable with myself? But there is a difference between meeting a version of self with courage and meeting it with avoidance. And so, maybe we all have feelings that we don't like feeling. I'm sorry, it sucks. We're human. This happens, right? This happens sometimes. Like we have feelings, we don't want to feel them. It's uncomfortable. So often like our judgments about ourselves are similar. They're gross to us in some way. They're like, that's not lovable. Like, ew. And so we want to avoid it. But actually, the more that we can, and I know this is kind of an abstract concept until we have the experience of it, but it's like And we'll get into examples in a little bit here too, which I think will help elucidate the point a little bit. But creating that compassionate relationship to self of saying, okay, I'm feeling that I really don't want to look at this part of me. I'm feeling some shame around it, and I wish that I was different. Bingo. I wish that I was different.
Mhm.
That is the mind saying, all right, this is a part that's feeling a little jagged. How do we look at that? So I'll leave it there yeah, and I'd love to hear what you have to say about this. I feel like
Yeah.
it's going to be
Yeah.
some
It's
juice.
so good. It's so good. It really takes courage to be present to the parts of ourselves that we don't like. And what I love about this practice
Yes.
is
Yes.
we get to make space for our humanity.
Yes.
And that's really important because we're in this mucky muck game of being humans, all of us, without exception. And
So awkward.
the sooner we embrace the muck, the sooner we can find authentic connection with ourselves and with others. It's literally through our humanity that we find connection. And it's really impossible to create authentic connection skirting around humanity because we're not in authenticity if we're ignoring or forcing down the parts of ourselves that are authentically messy, because we all have them. And that is part of our journey in this human world of purifying ourselves, right? Those of us that are on higher consciousness paths, that's what we're doing. We're getting present to the parts of ourselves that have not been polished. And then we bring them to light, and we bring them to being witnessed, and we bring them into a space of being loved by ourselves first. Like Jessica was saying, that has to be first. We can't, you've heard it a million ways. We can't love others unless we love ourselves. Well, this is part of it. Loving our humanity, loving our mucky muck.
Yes.
And from the place of loving our own mucky muck, we make space for each other's mucky muck. And that's where we shift out of judgment and criticism and confining each other into who we think the other person should be, because we don't have space for how they're actually showing up in their mucky muck authenticity, right? So we make room for our own humanity. That's key. We identify the parts of ourselves we're not so much in love with yet, and we make room for them. And then we intentionally bring love to them. And that takes patience. It takes faith. It takes believing that we can transform these parts of ourselves into something more brilliant and more shiny and more open to our future, right? Of being empowered in our own gifts and skills. We've got to love all parts of ourselves. We've got to bring all parts of ourselves on that journey. So yeah, I think add whatever else you'd like to, Jessica, and then we can get into some examples from our own lives.
Okay, I would love to just say this, that like when we're talking about this, it sounds like so much work, and it is. It is. However, there is a carrot. There is a pot of gold. You know what I mean? It's like it's for a reason. And that is that we have more satisfying relationships with ourselves and with others when we choose to show up in these powerful ways.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it takes awareness. Yeah, it takes time. Yeah, it takes patience. Yeah, it's annoying. Yeah, it's super messy sometimes. Because I mean, okay, I don't know if any of you are like this, but am a recovering perfectionist. And so, and like, an overworker, and I'm like not doing that so much these days, but my history was that. And so there's always this concept, or I held a concept for many years of my life that somehow things were going to be magically like perfect or like different in a way that was like, I don't know, I'm more ideally human. And that's just not where I've come to think that that's not where love lives. Because that's not been my experience of love for myself or for others. Like my experience of love actually looks like making room for who I am, making room for who I just inherently am. And in doing so, allowing others to as well, because the asks are cleaner. And being willing to meet the messiness with compassion, and for me, humor, and a sort of relieving laughter, because sometimes you just need to clear the space.
Yes.
Yeah, so that's it. It is work. It's work to be human. It's work to, have a job and pay for these lives that we live and do these things. And I think that we reap more benefits, or we are more ourselves in order to enjoy ourselves and others when there's that clarity. So.
Mm-hmm. 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 Yeah.
So.
All right.
Yeah.
Shall we dig into some examples? We're gonna
I'm
get
down.
vulnerable here with you guys. We're gonna walk our talk.
Yeah.
We're gonna get vulnerable, and we're gonna share with you some of the work that we've done in identifying our own insecurities and bringing awareness to them, bringing openness, bringing our humanity in, bringing our own love to these places in ourselves that were previously not as loved. So we'll take you through a couple intimate shares right now.
Yeah, and I do want to place as a caveat, because if there are other empaths or healers or people who deeply care, as I would imagine many of you are, just so you know, we share things that are healed within ourselves. So we've already healed ourselves of the examples that we do. And one reason is that for me, I'll speak for myself, I don't want to bring something that I might be re-traumatized with on camera, because that isn't a helpful example. And again, for me as a practice, I share my deep truths, my deep vulnerabilities with a trusted person who I care, who I know can respond to me in kindness. Whether that be a friend or myself or some. So
Yeah.
I just want to let you know that we don't, there isn't any fixing here. There's no need. We're sharing actually in connection to say, look, we're human. And we've walked through this, and we believe that we all can. Does that make sense? Am I saying that? You know what I mean?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
All right. Cool.
Beautifully said.
Okay. Do you want to go first?
Sure.
Okay.
Sure. So I'm going to share from a space of relationship, from partnership insecurities. So we are aware that one of the places we're airing this particular show is through a Facebook group that is sponsored by Love Coach Academy. And the Facebook group is called Secure, Sovereign, and Single. And Jessica and I are both admins on that group, and we are here to support the folks that are currently identifying as single. And on that Facebook group, we do a lot of motivational information and vulnerable sharing through live videos and coaching people, Facebook group coaching, nothing super in-depth as if it were a one-on-one session, but we get into a little bit of support and coaching through the moderation of the group. So if you're not already a member and you want to join, please find the Secure, Sovereign, and Single Facebook group and hit, join group. And specifically, this is for people that are identified right now as single. So if you're in a partnership, I don't recommend you join that group right now, because it's really a community for folks that identify as single. And that said, I'm going to be sharing from an aspect of partnership, because in my life trajectory, the deepest work for me has been in partnership. I think that one of the unique, beautiful opportunities in partnership is that we get to have mirrors. We get to have these divine mirrors, which are designed for us to be confronted by the things that are important for us to heal in this lifetime. So in deep partnership is really a very intensive laboratory for doing the deep healing work. And I'm going to share an aspect of my life from healing work that I did in partnership. And part of the context is right now, if we're identified in a single period in our life, it's a really good time to do the practice work, because the mirrors are often a little less intense when we're single than when we're in our life partnership kind of relationship, where the mirrors are often very, very intense. So part of what's really nice about the single period is you can play with these qualities and these exercises and do some of the work that really literally does help chip away at some of the growth work that we're doing in our lives, so that when we are face to face with our beloved, we've done a lot of the work and we get to enter into deeper partnership because we've been doing the work while we're single. So that's really the space of this secure, sovereign, and single group is hey, now's a really good time to get some coaching and to do some work on yourself, your triggers that are coming up. Because the more we work on it now, the higher vibration we will emit, and then the higher vibration we'll receive in return, law of attraction, which ultimately means the higher platform on which we'll create partnership. So the single times in life are epic times to really do growth work and prepare for deeper and deeper relationships in the future. So all of that said, one of the recent experiences in my life where I was doing some really deep work around insecurities, this is going to be in a poly context for those of you that are practicing ethical non-monogamy. That's my relationship life. So I'm going to speak from that place. And I was in poly partnership doing some really deep work around my insecurities that were popping up with us having flirtations with other people and attractions with other people. And I got to a place with this partner where I was having like triggered outbursts of like, what is going on? And why are you doing this? And why are those people paying attention to you? And hold on, like, why aren't they respecting me and my role as your primary partner? And why aren't they, like da da da, like I lost my shit. And I didn't know that side of myself, right? Like it took this level of deep love and commitment and partnership and vulnerability for me to access the part of myself that was freaking out because I wasn't getting the attention I thought I needed. I wasn't getting the acknowledgement in my role as the primary partner, right? And I flipped out. And it's like these rare moments in my life where I reach my point of like, whoa, it's all out there on my sleeve. These are, the hardest moments emotionally to go through, the maybe most embarrassing. Like I publicly made a scene of myself because I was feeling insecure. And right, if we can get through that, then we get to, this is actually really the special sauce in life. These are the moments where I get to see myself so raw. These are the cracks where the light comes in. And so in that experience, I was able to just be fully in my vulnerability and create the environment where my partner at the time really saw me and really stepped in closer and really was willing to listen and understand what's going on for you. Like, what are you needing right now? What are you feeling? What's missing? And I was able to find the parts in myself that needed affirmation. And I was able to ask for that. And we were able to create an environment where those more vulnerable, sensitive aspects of ourselves could be seen and talked about and brought to the surface. It wasn't all pretty and it wasn't all perfect. One of the downsides of this insecure enmeshment with each other was that we created a way of pulling on each other and limiting each other. And it didn't feel good to either of us. Like this was the place where our insecurities create a byproduct, like a negative byproduct in the relationship, which was we both did not feel free. We didn't feel empowered by each other. Like, I love you, I trust you, go be you, and I'll be responsible for what comes up for me. We were not as empowered in that place as we could have been. We were more disempowered in our insecurities and therefore pulling on each other's freedom and confining each other. And it got to the place where it was really unsustainable, where we both felt confined and we both realized this isn't living. Like, this isn't where we want to be. I don't want to be confined by you and I don't want to confine you. And I'm at the effect of both. Right. So it took some really honest conversations and hiring a relationship coach and working through the insecurities that we were both feeling to get to a place where we were able to choose to give each other freedom and choose to own our insecurities as our own. So self-responsibility is a really important topic in insecurities too, which is like we project our insecurities onto each other, but that's not the end game. That's like what we do
Well
in our
said.
humanity that, is the beginning of the work. So it took a lot for me to get responsible about my insecurities and stop projecting them and restricting her freedom, because that's what I was doing in the beginning. I was restricting her freedom due to my insecurities. And I eventually got to a place where it was like, wow, okay, these are mine. And I really want you to be you and be in your expressions and be free.
Oh.
Yeah. And I'm sure, you see yourself in this and you hear yourself in this. This is not a stranger to probably anybody listening to this show right now. We all know what it feels like to have insecurities, to project our insecurities, to be irresponsible around our insecurities. And I imagine most people who found your way to Love Coach Academy or to this group are also in the same community that we're in, which is we work on ourselves from a conscious, intentional place of self-growth as a commitment and as a spiritual value. So I imagine you're all also in the game of how do I become more and more self-responsible with my insecurities, and, like the topic of the show, utilize them as a source of strength for greater self-connection and greater connection with others.
Thank you so much for sharing that. And I think that there's a couple points that I would love to meet. Are you open to that?
Yeah, please.
Okay, so the first one was when you were talking about having a public, like having a strong reaction that even surprised yourself.
Yeah.
I wish that we had an audience where we could see faces, because like I just feel like, has anyone ever experienced that? Because I know I have, where I'm like, what is, like, I'm watching myself react. And so how beautifully human is that experience? And when you tell me, I don't go to a place of judgment. And I'm bringing this up because often when we share our insecurities, we think, oh, the other person's going to go to judgment. They're not going to like me. They're not going to accept me. When I hear you say that, I think, oh man, I've been there. Yeah. I've been there, and I know how much that hurts. Yeah. And I know how surprising it is. Yeah. And I know how scary it is, because in a small way, for a little moment, I lose a little bit of self-trust. Yeah. And I have to rebuild that. And if I'm lucky and met, with a really beautiful communication, which it sounds like you were, then, oh my God, we're met with loving communication. We're able to meet there, own and take responsibility for the thing that just happened that, oh God, I'm embarrassed about right now. And say, okay, I think that I'm feeling this way because of this. I need to take a little moment because I'm still freaking out and embarrassed right now. But when I come back, can you tell me this one thing, or can you hold me, or will you be available to me in some way? And then that is what creates the bridge, right? It's saying, I'm meeting you in humanness. I'm a little bit embarrassed right now. I still love you. Do you still love me? Because I think that there's that part of us that's saying, do you still accept me even though I feel like either there's something wrong with me or I just screwed up?
Yeah. Yep.
And this isn't to say that, like, there are layers here, right? Like, I know Camila, and I know that, like, this was not an abusive situation. I know that this was like within a realm that she felt uncomfortable with, but there was no physical violence. So when we're talking in these videos, I always want to lay it out that there are some situations where we do need to leave, where it's not appropriate for us to be there. And we're not saying that behavior is okay ever. Yeah. So if there's ever an issue around safety or something else, then yes, we need to self-care at that point and leave. Yeah. However, when we're talking about being embarrassed by something that we're choosing to do, it's a different conversation, isn't it? Yeah. Because we all kind of screw up sometimes. Or I don't mean to say that you screwed up, but if I was looking, I'd be like, oh God, I did this thing, and which I am just about to share my own example. So anyways, thank you so much for sharing
Yeah,
that.
absolutely. If I can say one more thing on it,
Please.
like you said, the healing from perfectionism, right? So for those of us that are driving ourselves hard, overworking, I really relate to that too. I'm working on healing my overworking gene. And for those of us that have that real strong self-criticism drive, productivity, right, perfectionism, it can be extremely transformative to hold these human parts of ourselves and make room for them and accept them and breathe into them. So the experience I just shared was really transformative for me in that relationship to create more space for my humanity. Like, hey, look, I'm not perfect. Don't put me on a pedestal. I have my own flaws and here they are. Getting to be raw in sharing my humanity is a really sacred space. And it then creates the space, the invitation for others to be raw in their humanity with us. And that is where vulnerability and connection emerge. Really, like intimacy is created through vulnerability. And insecurities are part of that vulnerability. So we really mean it when we say insecurities are a vehicle for creating more connection.
We really do mean it.
Yeah.
We're sorry,
Yeah.
guys. We didn't write the playbook.
All right. So let's hear
Okay.
your
Oh
juicy share.
God. I can feel myself getting nervous just like sharing this. So which is of course so human. So there what I love about this story is that I was deeply unaware of this until about 4 years ago. And so I might have had like inklings of it, but I didn't realize how deep a layer it plugged into for me. So there were many years of my life, and I think it started, I think it's always been a little bit true. But where I thought that no one would love me because of my body.
Mm-hmm.
And my judgments were like, it's lumpy and it's too fat, or it's this, or I can't keep up, or just like really harsh. And I think that it was so ingrained in me. And I just think about like my time in front of the mirror where and I've done so much work, you guys. Like I did a lot of high workshops, a lot of body positivity, and even in that, there was a disconnect in me and how I actually related to my body. There was a piece of me that believed that I was single because there was something wrong with my body. And so there were messages that came that were that were not overt, right? There were messages from poor choice partners that were overt. And I think one of the things is when we carry some of these deep pains, often we find relationships that can act as kind of a painful mirror to what we believe in ourselves. And whether they are the mirror or we are projecting that image onto the mirror, it can really start to stir up some of those things. And if we're not careful, they can continue to confirm those beliefs that we have in ourselves. And so it was in my last relationship, actually, the last two major relationships. So one of them, I would ask him all of the time. And again, still oblivious. So this was like in my early 30s, still oblivious. I'd be like, did I gain weight? Do I look fat? Regularly, I would ask this. And then in my last relationship, I can remember playing the same game, doing the same story. I would feel uncomfortable with myself in life, and then I would ask him, did I gain weight? Do I look fat? And he looked at me, and I thank God every day that this person had enough insight to be like, Jess, I think that you might have some body dysmorphia because you ask me this all the time and you look great. Like there's nothing wrong. And so for me, that was kind of a turning point because it was totally below my consciousness. And so when I look at it now, and as I've done more and more work, because the underlying story that's beneath those layers was actually, I'm not worthy of love. And this is one sign that I'm using to confirm that I'm not worthy of love because my body looks this lumpy way.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, so, and I can say this now and I can laugh at it because I think it was so separate. It's just amazing to me, like how much work I've done, that this was such a strong belief system for so many years. And I can look back and I can say, oh, here. I used this as an impediment for love. I used this as a reason why not to connect. I used this as a reason why not to accept full love, even when it was readily available. And so it comes down to, we can't accept, like, we get to choose where we accept love into. The love was available for me the entire time, you guys. It was available to me. But I couldn't let it in because my belief system was just covering it up. Like the belief that all of them, like, like the avoidance of was covering it up. That once I realized what was going on, my other belief systems were covering it up. And I can clearly and honestly say that the work that I've done in the last many years, like, I am available to be loved. I am available for my body to be celebrated. Like, I am fully available to celebrate my own body and allow others to do the same. And there's like a different level of attachment that happens for me, because I think before, when someone would say something positive about my body, I would cling to it. Because I needed it to be true. Now I'm like, it's my body. I'm cool. It's like a different thing. So for me, those insecurities, like, one, just recognizing that was a deep insecurity for me, and listening to the reflections that other people were actually trying to give me all that time of, like, it's your ownership. It's Jessica's. It's Jessica's ownership of this body. And then so now I think after that point, when the ex brought that up, I might say something like, hey, well, now if it were to come up again, which I'm not sure that it would, there's like an understanding, right? Like, oh, I'm feeling insecure about my body today. Can you give me a compliment?
Yeah.
Very different energy, right?
Yeah.
Very different. So the subtleties of what cavities within ourselves, what cavities that are longing for love and acceptance within ourselves, once we fill them in and understand them, when we create asks around those same topics, it is very different, right? It's clean. So I think that I answered all of the questions. I went into story a bit, but I think that let me just check here.
That was great. It was really good.
Oh, one last thing is, I think it shifts when we have longings or insecurities that are under the covers, are not overt. It takes intentional resolve to meet them differently, and it takes choice and how we get to be at choice in how we want to get those needs met from there on out. So it actually is a really cool process. So I would love, Camila, take it away.
Yeah. I want to offer some reflections on your share as well. And first, Scott Katamas giving us some encouragement on the tender reveals. Thank you, Scott. Scott is the founder of Love Coach Academy, and he trained both of us in our process of becoming love coaches, and is a really, really incredible coach. I have worked with him as a client as well as a mentee. And his work really leads with empathy. So Jessica and I have both been trained in really bringing empathy to every conversation as a tool for transforming things like insecurities. So you can hear in Jessica's story, one important aspect I want to reflect to, Jessica, is this bit about you found underneath the body insecurity a belief that you were unlovable, let's just say. And then you figured out that this my body's lumpy is part of affirming the belief underneath that I'm unlovable. And once you work on that original belief and you transform it from I'm unlovable to I am beautiful and lovable, then this lumpy body bit no longer has power.
It no longer has power.
Because it
Yes.
doesn't attach to the story anymore.
It
The
doesn't attach to
story is
story.
I'm empowered and lovable. And it's like,
Yes.
body, yeah, I've got a beautiful body. So do you, right?
Yeah.
So I think you illustrated that really well, that, every insecurity has a belief and a story underneath it.
Yes.
And that's the real work. It's not actually the insecurity. The insecurity is just covering a belief underneath that's driving the insecurity. And when we can figure out the belief underneath, that's where we bring love. And it just depowers this insecurity because the belief system shifts. And there's no longer that neurological attachment to my body's lumpy, it's so bad. Right? Because from a place of I'm beautiful and I deserve all the love in the world, what attaches to that is, yeah, my body's beautiful. This is part of beautiful me. My body, my mind, my spirit, it's all part of beautiful, lovable me.
I
So,
just
yeah, go
love
ahead.
how you said it depowers it, because that is freaking it.
Right?
That's it. Yeah,
Right.
it changes everything. It changes
Right.
the way that we live in life when we go to that deeper place and really examine and unplugs these like things that now feel so insignificant, right?
Yeah. Well
Yeah.
said. Well said. We can laugh at ourselves from a place of like, wow, how perfectly human. That's another saying
Yes.
in Love Coach Academy, which Jessica said earlier. We can just laugh at ourselves and in the past, wow, how perfectly human I was when I made a scene at my friend's wedding because I was really insecure. Wow, what a beautiful moment of humanity that allowed me to be vulnerable and ultimately get closer to the people who love me. Right? Because we don't get closer through being on a high horse and being impenetrable and being perfect. That doesn't actually create any connection. When we
Oh,
are messy and revealed, that's when others want to come closer to us because they feel permission to be, to hold, to share, to grow together.
I love that. And I think in my situation, I almost see the insecurities that I held as a wall. So, this belief system I had is this wall that's keeping me from really accepting love in these deep hurt places.
Yeah.
And so now that that wall's gone, it's like, oh, well, I can love myself there. I could let other people love me there. Like, no biggie. And so, and yeah, so I think that, and take down the wall, we let others in, we let ourselves in, we let love in to those insecure places, because that's really what they're asking for. They're really asking to be known and to be seen and to be loved and to be accepted, I think.
Yeah. My sister was giving me some relationship coaching advice one day, and she said, honey, your partner wants to see the troll under the bridge. Okay. Like you've just got to come the troll under the bridge so you can both be trolls under the bridge together. I was like, oh, okay. Become the troll under the bridge, and then we can just hang out as trolls under the bridge together, which is a metaphor for our messy humanity. And we
Yes.
don't want our partner to be pristine and untouchable. That's not connection. That's not
That's not.
family.
Oh God, it's so not. I love that. Also, when you said troll under the bridge, I pictured you with like a rainbow colored troll like hair and
Of
like
course.
skipping with another troll.
That sounds fun.
Right? That doesn't sound bad. There's a stream there. You can go swimming.
In my rainbow troll hair. Yay.
Yes.
Well, if there are any last things that you wanted to get in here, Jessica, we're going to be wrapping up soon. We welcome anybody's comments. If you have any questions, now's the time. We're going to be wrapping up soon. Steph says, vulnerability is so appealing.
Yes.
It
That's
is.
yes.
It's sexy. Vulnerability is sexy, y'all. If you want to become
Yes.
sexy, get your vulnerability on.
Yes. I love it. I want Steph on my train.
Yes, yes,
Yeah,
yes.
I do want to just take a little moment and give us each a plug. So we both work with humans and
And
we love
trolls.
to, and trolls. We work with trolls under the bridge. Whatever color your hair is totally acceptable. We will love you. Um, so yes, I want to just say that I offer free discovery sessions if you're curious about what brain spotting is, what life and empowerment coaching is. If if you need some empathy, this is what we do. And we go to the dark places. We go to the deep places within, so that we can save you a lot of time. Like, can you imagine if I had had brain spotting in my 20s?
Oh, right.
Dunzo. Like, I wouldn't have been carrying the weight of this like goofy belief system about my body and experiencing that impediment to love all of those years. So yeah, I mean, this is what we do. We save people time. So
Yeah.
contact us. Do you do a free discovery session as well? Like a
Yes.
20, 30
So
minute? Yeah.
I do. I do free discovery sessions as well. And the sort of specialty niche that I work in is often the intersection of spirituality and sexuality. So
Yes.
if folks are dealing with any sort of breakdowns in faith and, spiritual life, or trauma from being in a religious group in the past, or, feeling lost and finding your way and your connection to higher power, anything along those themes is great work for me to support you with. And then the whole sphere around sexuality and intimacy and vulnerability and communication. I do a lot of work in communication, in the realm of communication with my clients. So anyone who's wanting support with sexual challenges, breakdowns, confusions, frustrations, sexual identity, gender identity, anything along those spectrums is really wonderful material that I love to work on, that I've been through stuff myself in those fields. That's what makes us great coaches, is we've done the messy work and are still doing the messy work. I know,
We're still
Jessica,
doing it.
we are both
We're doing
actively,
it.
yeah, we are both actively doing work on developmental trauma and growth, self-growth work. It is a lifelong process. You want a coach that walks their talk. So I know that Jessica and I both get in, we roll our sleeves up and we get in the dirt.
We do. We do. We're trolls. We get it done.
Yeah.
Beautiful. And then also sovereign, secure, and single. I keep wanting to say sovereign, secure, and sexy, but that's not what it is.
We're
Sovereign, we
gonna
are
add another
sexy.
S to that. It's gonna
Yeah.
be secure, sovereign, single, and
Yes.
sexy.
So sovereign, secure, and single Facebook group. Please add yourself. Even if you're in a new relationship, there are some tools there too. I feel like that could be helpful. But we love you. We want to know you.
Yes.
Yes.
See that? Boom, branding.
So many X's for a reason. I love it.
Yeah. So we love playing, obviously. We love your comments. Please write on the Secure, Sovereign, and Single group. Please bring to us what you got going on, because we'd love to offer support and community on those topics.
Always, always. Okay. Yes.
All
We did
right.
it. I love it.
Yay.
Yeah.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.